What if the path you've been on for decades is no longer the one calling to your soul? Welcome back to the From Permission to the Power series. Today, we're moving from simply giving yourself permission to change direction to actually making confident pivots after 50. Because giving yourself theoretical permission is just the beginning. The real transformation, my sisters, happens when you take that first brave step in a new direction. Let me share something I don't talk about often. After about 27 years in the same career path, I realized I was living on autopilot. I was competent, respected in my field, and the path forward was mostly clear. But that clarity started to feel more like a cage than comfort. And I would wake up with this sense of disconnection, like I was playing a role in someone else's story. I'd given myself theoretical permission to change direction, but I remained frozen in place. The gap between what I said I wanted and what I was actually doing grew wider every day. What held me back wasn't an external obstacle, they were more internal. The fear of wasting all I've invested, the identity I'd built, the security I'd established. I have all the right industry certifications. And beneath that, something even more profound, the fear that I might not succeed at anything else. My turning point came during a conversation with a woman 15 years my senior. She said something I'll never forget. The question isn't whether you can afford to change direction at this stage of life. It's whether you can afford not to. Let me repeat that statement so that it sinks in. The question isn't whether you can afford to change direction at this stage of life. It's whether you can afford not to. Deep, right? I thought so. She had made a major pivot at 65 and described the years that followed as the most alive she'd ever felt. That one conversation shifted something fundamentally in me. I realized I'd been asking all the wrong questions, focused on what I might lose rather than what I might find. The very next day, I took one small action toward a direction that had been calling to me for years. That single step set in motion a sequence of changes that eventually led to where I am today. Doing work that feels aligned with who I've become. Doing work that I know would help other women that are walking in my shoes. Through working with mature women, I've observed that many of us get stuck in what I call permission without movement. We're quite good at it too. We intellectually grant ourselves permission to change direction, but we remain paralyzed when it comes to actually pivoting. 3 specific barriers keep so many brilliant women frozen in paths that no longer serve them. Number 1, the sunk cost fallacy. The belief that we must continue on a path of what we've already invested in. What's like, I've put in 30 years into this career, into this relationship, into this location. I can't just walk away now. This thinking, it keeps us committed to directions that no longer align with who we have become. And then there's the identity attachment, that's number 2. The fear of losing who we've been. After decades of being identified as the executive, the teacher, the caregiver, the reliable one, whatever your title is, who are we if we step away from those roles? From these hard-earned titles, I'll admit, I studied hard to earn my certifications. And let me tell you, they were not cheap. Nor was this studying easy. This identity uncertainty creates profound resistance to change. The all or nothing assumption is another one. The belief that changing direction requires a dramatic leap rather than a thoughtful pivot. When change feels like jumping off of a cliff without a parachute, of course we hesitate. In this episode, I'm sharing my 5-step confident pivoting framework, the practical bridge between permission to change and actually making that change with clarity and confidence. Let's start with direction discernment. This is distinguishing between restlessness and genuine calling. Not all impulses to change are equal. This step is about developing a relationship with your inner guidance system that can differentiate between temporary discomfort and true misalignment. I've observed this discernment that transforms lives. One woman felt a strong impulse to leave a 30-year marriage, but through this process, she realized what she actually needed was to transform the relationship, not end it. Another woman believed she needed to move across the country like I did when I moved from Maryland to Houston. A decision that transformed my life personally. But for her, it was different. She discovered a real desire was for more adventure and spontaneity, which she could create right where she was. And this pivot mapping, identifying the spectrum of change available to you. Change doesn't have to be binary, all or nothing. This step is about mapping the full spectrum from minor adjustment to major life redirections, helping you find the right scale of change for your situation. We practice pivot mapping to identify the full range of possibilities. For instance, a teacher who felt called to leave education can explore multiple points on the education spectrum, such as maybe changing grade levels, moving to a different school, shifting to administrative roles, becoming a curriculum designer, starting a tutoring business, and completely changing fields. This mapping expands beyond either or thinking to reveal the rich middle ground of possibilities. And there's the experimental mindset, approaching changes as exploration rather than commitment. This step is about designing small experiments that allows you to test new directions without the pressure of irreversible decisions. I've seen the experimental mindset transform how women approach change. A friend who's been in finance for decades but felt drawn to wellness field started with a simple experiment, taking one certification course while maintaining her current position. This low-risk step gave her valuable information about whether this new direction fully aligned with her values and strengths without requiring an immediate career leap. Or another friend who's been contemplating relocating back home for her retirement years. We talked about her taking a sabbatical for a year or two, if that's possible. Then go live like the locals, not like a tourist. That way, her decision is backed by data, not just emotional desire. Resource allocation is another thing that you should pay attention to. Strategically shifting your time, your energy, and attention towards your emerging direction. This step is about making concrete changes in how you allocate your most precious resources to support your pivot. Small reallocations actually create meaningful momentum. Things like setting aside 1 hour each morning for your new direction, reducing commitments that drain energy but don't align with your emerging path, reallocating financial resources to support exploration and learning. These aren't dramatic gestures, but strategic shifts that create space for new growth. The next to consider is support cultivation, building relationships and structures that will sustain you through change. No significant pivot happens in isolation. None. This step is about consciously creating the support ecosystem your specific change requires. Different pivots require different kinds of support. Someone changing a career might need professional mentorship, skills development, and financial cushioning, while someone shifting relationship patterns might need emotional support, therapeutic guidance, and community reinforcement. Identifying and cultivating the precise support your pivot requires dramatically increases your likelihood of sustained change. Now let's take action. Today's power step is implementing the experimental mindset. I want you to design one small experiment that allows you to explore a new direction without the pressure of all or nothing change. Let me give you some examples. A woman considering relocating took a month-long rental in a target city before making any permanent decisions. Simple, right? Stay with me. Someone drawn to entrepreneurship started a side project while maintaining her current job. A long-time homemaker, curious about returning to work, can volunteer in a field of interest for 5 hours weekly. The key is designing an experiment with these qualities. Low risk, but high learning potential. Clear time frame. When will you assess what you've learned? Specific questions you want to answer through this experiment. Minimal disruption to your current stability. Write down your experiment design. What specifically will you try? For how long? What are you hoping to learn? What resources will you need? And finally, when will you begin? Then commit to starting this experiment within the next 14 days. Not someday. Not when the stars align perfectly. They hardly ever align perfectly. Within 2 weeks. This is how we begin shifting from permission to pivot in actual confident movement. Share in the comments what direction has been calling to you and what small experiment could you design to explore. Your experiment might be exactly the inspiration another woman needs to begin her own pivot. And if you're ready to move beyond permission and into confident pivoting in your third act, make sure you subscribe to this channel. In the next video, we're going to talk about from permission to prioritize yourself to boundary mastery. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss it. And if you want to download the complete Confident Pivoting Workbook, including the Experiment Design Guide, join our society community. I'll leave a link in the description. This is your third act. I'm reminding you that it's never too late to change direction when your soul is calling you somewhere new. Your third act, let's redefine it.